So we thought it might be helpful since we keep hearing about much of our state budget is dependent on federal funding and how some of that may or may not be at risk. Some of it already has been lost in other areas. Just to get a sense of what the departments that we work with are, looking at there. So I invited the commission to come in. Thank you for putting this presentation together. And I don't think it's very long. So let's just take a look at the numbers.
Great. Good to be back. I think it's been a couple of weeks. Danielle Fitzko, Commissioner of Forest, Parks and Recreation.
I'm Ansley Blair. I'm the Director of Finance and Administration for Forest Parks and Recreation.
And we'll give you the high level overview of our federal budget. Just to sort of kick it off, we'll share the federal money that comes just to FPR. There are other agencies or others that give out money that like supports forestry, but that doesn't come through FPR. Particularly like I'm thinking of the Natural Resource Conservation Service, NRCS. Currently in our budget, we have $44 million in federal awards. That doesn't all come in 1 year, but that's sort of our portfolio that we have on the books right now. We receive federal awards both through a competitive process where a group of staff that really go after funding to bring in so we can support our mission. And so we go after a lot of grants. And then we have what they call categorical grants. So things that kind of, we like to say like base funding that we get year after year. And a lot of our forestry programs and our recreation programs, we get sort of base dollars every year. And the funds that we get support FPR and the services we provide out to Vermonters. And also we do a lot of subawards, whether they're to partners that give an extension of our service or subrecipients where they're doing like projects on the ground, like recreation projects or conservation projects. The list of federal agencies that we typically work with, the Forest Service is a big funder of ours, National Park Service, particularly for recreation grants, Federal Highway Administration is also recreation grants, Northern Borders Regional Commission, both recreation and forestry. And then sadly, we have Federal Emergency Management money, FEMA funds right now. And we have broad use of federal grants. Some federal grants will only just sort of support positions in our service and operations, while others, like I just mentioned before, we sub-grant out for projects or like our extension of our work. And we get grants that support forestry, Division of Forestry, recreation, and then also land acquisition with conservation.
Question, Representative O'Brien.
Danny, could you give us an example of like a competitive grant? I mean, is it sort of like what our municipalities face? I mean, the Forest Service will say, calling all FPRs around the US.
Yep, they'll say there's a notice of funding opportunity, so a NOFA, they call it, and then we would apply for those that would allow state governments to apply. There are some times where it would just be state governments could apply, but many times, and we're competing against either regionally or nationally. There's ones that we apply for every year called landscape scale restoration. There's usually about $4 million available for our region of the Forest Service. So it's like 20 states. And we would apply for, we're going to look for programming and planning around responding to emerald ash borer, or we're going to be responding to other invasive species, or we're going to be doing an urban and community forestry program enhancements to support municipalities. So we have a forest action plan. So if we're writing a grant that supports the forest action plan, it would work. So, but we're not guaranteed to get that. And they're typically 3 to 5 years in time frame for those grants.
Thank you.
All right, so on the next few slides, they might look familiar because we presented them a couple of months back. So I'll go quickly, but please stop me if you have questions. So the total FPR budget for FY26 is split across multiple funds. General fund 13.6 million roughly, special fund 20.5, mostly park special fund, a little bit for clean water and our interdepartmental, and then our federal budget is roughly 18.2 million, which is exactly 33% of our total budget for FY26.
What was the dollar figure?
It's 18,169,674.
So then just help us understand the difference between the 44 million on the previous slide and the 18 million in the pie chart.
44 million is what we have under agreements. We don't spend them all in one year. Some grants, we just hopefully are going to actually begin working on this one. We got a $5 million grant, which will take us 5 years to implement. So we book what we expect to spend in that a fiscal year.
And that's how the, I've already forgotten the number, 18 million on for this coming fiscal year. Okay. Representative Lipsky.
I have a question on the bottom line of federal emergency management. What is the NANA?
We don't have any subrecipient awards, so awards passing through to other communities. It's the awards that we're receiving directly from FEMA.
And that particular line item, both from the not FY, 2023 and 2024 storm events where we had impacts on state lands. So we're actually doing remediation work.
And have those funds been received?
Only a small portion
Yeah,
at
no.
this point. We're still doing a lot of the work. We have closed out, I think, 18 of our roughly probably 80 projects.
A lot of documentation and paperwork goes along with and approvals for spending the money.
Just to follow up on the chair's question, between that 44 and 18 gap there, how much of it, you know, when we hear these rumors like, oh, you better get that money if it's out, you know, draw it down now if you can, is there a bigger chunk than you could draw it down in this next fiscal year if you thought, oh, we're going to lose it if we don't?
Usually the reimbursement, so we have to spend the money to get reimbursed. And the business office team is doing monthly, how often? Monthly drawdowns?
Yeah.
We used to do it spread out a little bit more on a quarterly basis and even longer, but like we're doing it as quickly as we can as we're spending it.
So you see it here, we have a $44 million in federal awards. Of that, about 35 million is expended. And we have about 5.5 million still outstanding in subrecipient awards. So awards that will go or will pass through us to go out to communities and to partners.
That-
You've already talked about the fund. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I think that may be confusing when I'm listening to your questions. We have grants that are like $44 million that we have grants for. We have remaining of those grants, 35,000 that we haven't spent yet. Million, yeah.
Okay. So that is in your possession or in the
We could call in.
the state treasury anyway?
You would have to expend all of that to call it in.
From the federal government?
Again, because it's reimbursement based, we'd actually do the work. We have a commitment for that amount. Once we do the work, we can draw it back in.
Okay, yeah, thank you for clarifying that. So we can, maybe you're going to get into this, but, you know, think about how much of that 35 million you might not be able to get when you ask for it to be reimbursed.
Yes.
Lead right on in. Well, so
Oh, I added that one.
yes. Well, then we have two more that are kind of the numbers. We can skip around though. We can.
Yeah.
If you're going to get to that, that's fine.
Okay.
And Representative Nelson, did you have a question?
And this money is used for fixing Forest and Parks Lane that was damaged by the flood, or is any of it for the operators you had that were going to be working on lands and lost their livelihood for?
Right. So the FEMA money in particular is only for projects that we had damages for. It is not any money
Bridges,
for like
roads.
lost, like business interruption. Those funds were handled through the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, ACCD. We did not have any grants out.
And parks. There was a number of damages done at parks, at state parks as
Yeah.
well.
Okay, thank you.
And so in this slide, we have a representation, if you want to talk about it, of all the different divisions and their federal funds.
Yeah, so I just kind of wanted to give you a snapshot of where the funding was going to. There are no federal dollars that we're showing here that goes to parks. So they really they're really a self-funded sort of operation. Forestry of that 18 million is about 4 million, a little over $4 million. Lands administration and recreation is the highest at almost $14 million. Most of that, it's a lot of it's pass-through grants. We pass a lot of recreation grants out the door to nonprofits and municipalities. And then the other big bucket there is land acquisition. There's $7 million in that bucket for new land acquisitions through Forest Legacy. And administration does have a position that's supported, so they just have 86,000.
And you can see the positions represented here by division as well. So this is just a different flip of the last chart. You can see the monetary or the amounts budgeted by division and the number of full-time employees. So we have about, 43 employees that have either a portion or all of their salaries paid with federal dollars. And if you kind of combine that down and crunch it down, it equates to 22 full-time employees, and it's about $2 million.
So full-time equivalents within your department, 22.
22 if you combine them all down, but in reality, we have 43 people that have a little piece
Oh, yeah.
or all their position funded by federal funds.
How many full-time equivalents do you have in total?
134?
Yeah.
134. Okay. So, yeah. Representative Ryan.
Just quickly thinking back to your reimbursements for grants and how that works. So do you have to keep sort of like a fund, because you're fronting all the money for these things, right? And then you get sort of like Tunbridge and FEMA, that you have to do the work and then they come around and pay you. So how do you budget that? You just.
It's we as part of our budget every year, we have the appropriation that we request for federal funds that's reserved for us to spend in that year. So we book our funds as we're doing the work, we're booking to the federal fund, and then we get reimbursed back into the federal fund. So it's coming in and going out of that same bucket of money, if you will.
Rolling fund, essentially.
Yeah.
So the state has.
It's a state's liability as we're
Yep.
doing the work until we get reimbursed.
So this is so that's sort of all the numbers we have on our federal budget. So if we want to go back and talk more about that, we can. I'll just kind of give you some of the current climate. There are still so many unknowns for us. We keep hearing pauses and things may change in the next fiscal year. We just really don't know right now. We're watching everything really closely. Currently, all FPR funding is intact. We haven't had any that has been pulled back from us. There are a couple right now that are on pause or being reviewed by the federal government, but it has not been pulled back, and we are choosing not to spend on it right now because we're a little nervous, but still all intact. We are waiting for the federal fiscal year 25 amount, so we're in a continuous resolution for the federal fiscal year, which starts October 1 and goes to September 30th. We're waiting to see what those numbers are going to be. We're hopeful that we won't see much reduction there. And that's what we're hearing. There's no way right now for us to predict what federal grants will be reduced or eliminated, let alone how it will impact FPR sub-grantees or Vermonters. It's really unknown. We have had some changes in our grant agreements that we send out just to make sure that we're reducing the risk for the state on sub-grants. And so any agreements that we're sending out, we've added some new language to that.
We've also been asked to strip some language out of our grant agreements as well.
Representative Boswell.
Can you just say a little bit more about that? I mean, you're talking about like diversity kind of things or handicap accessibility, like what kind of things would actually be impacted?
It's more that if our grants if we get the pullback of money, that we're gonna have to pull what they haven't spent back as well. So we're putting that layer of protection there that we're not held liable for funds. Is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
The mandated language is around DEI and climate change, where there's places where we're supposed to pull out language that refers to.
Really?
So does that mean you won't get money for things that are related to climate like that? Or if you take the name out and you call it something else, then it might still be okay. We'll find out.
Yep.
To be determined.
And there's many ways to talk about the good work that we will continue to do.
Yeah.
Let's see. So, I mean, I think we kind of know things that are going on. There's a lot of legal challenges happening, particularly on funding. There's a lot of talk right now about federal reorganization and staffing changes, particularly with, I mean, the Department of Interior that just announced the US Forest Service they're talking about. So we really don't know, but I can tell you there's a lot of people I've worked with in the past that are now taking the buyouts that are not there anymore. They really are reducing staff, and we can anticipate that there will be changes in who we work with and less people to work with. So when we're looking at you saw we had $44 million, and some of the way we're looking forward is some of those grants, like there's a grant, this $5 million grant that we have that'll take us 5 years to spend down on. So that'll take us through 5 years. And then there's some grants that we get every single year and they're overlapping and we don't spend it all in 1 year. So we have some buildup going on. So we're being really strategic on how we're spending our federal dollars, calling in as quickly as we can. And then when we need to, if we have to, we'll start to pull some levers to make sure that we keep our current level of service the best we can. We've been doing our best to just communicate with staff where honestly and openly where everything is, and we just don't have a lot to share right now.
So to date, anyway, you haven't had to let any staff know that their positions, their state positions have been eliminated.
Yeah, we did. No, we have not had to do that, and hopefully we won't ever have to. We do have approvals for some positions that we're not filling right now, just as a safeguard. But so we're just really trying to be thoughtful about how we move forward until we have some more answers.
So I know that other committees might be having similar conversations, and the House Appropriations Committee is hearing from everyone to get a sense of where are the critical concerns that if funding were cut, that the state might say, okay, that's something that has to be paid for, and that's a service that needs to be provided. That may be more likely in other jurisdictions than it is with the work that you do, as important as
Yeah.
you do is. But I don't want to say that, I'd like to hear you say that perhaps that there, in fact, here are some things that really do need to happen. And if we lost federal funding, we would be coming to the legislature saying, we need you to backfill this. And maybe that's.
There's some things. There's talk right now about wildland fire funding being pulled back. That's a safety concern. We have funds that support forest health, so our long-term monitoring could be at risk. We have funds that support our stewardships, our private lands program. There could be a risk of our ability to do the oversight and integrity of the UVA program. So I think every bit of money has somebody attached to it, and something will have to go away. But I think we would have to prioritize based on what funds are at risk. So I don't really have like a Medicaid kind of answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good. And as I say, I suspected that would be the case. And also, again, just to point out that so far, this is just conversation, and there hasn't been any funding loss that, affects your work. So.
I just wondered, I heard somewhere that Canadian visits are down by 1/3. And so I was wondering if that might really impact your state parks.
Sure. We are definitely down on our reservations for Canadian visitors. And it turns out they don't just stay for 3 days. They like to hang out for like 2 weeks. So I think we are down 60%, to be honest with you. But typically it's this time of year that we have less reservations coming in. So hopefully we catch up, but yeah. It's also when we have tough times, the state parks are a great affordable opportunity for vacation. So we are almost fully staffed, and we'll be welcoming anyone else to come. Like we're going to hang more Canadian flags out too.
Are we allowed to do that?
You're gonna what?
We have Canadian flags at our parks on the border. We may just hang some more.
Anything else that you had, Commissioner?
Happy to answer any other questions, and as we learn more, I can keep you informed. Yeah. It's on the daily. We're looking, learning.
Well, are there any other questions? Checking for Representative. All right. Well, thank you for coming in.
Yeah. Good to see you all.
All right, so just a quick agenda check for tomorrow. We're scheduled to start at 9. We've got, it looks like an hour of testimony from small farms that rural Vermont is bringing in for one of their small farm action days at the State House. And then after a break, Michael Grady's coming in to give us an overview of previous legislation that's been passed on neonicotinoids, including a major bill that was passed last year. That's to set up Heather Darby, who is an agronomist. She works for the UVM. She's been doing some field trials of coated and uncoated seeds, not just, I think, with neonics. So she has presented regularly in the past. So I asked her if she would come in. I thought it'd be interesting to hear.
She's coming in or Zoom?
She is. I don't know for sure if she's coming in person. Then the floor, I think it's going to be another short-ish session. So we've tentatively scheduled more testimony on S45 tomorrow afternoon at 2:30. So that'll be like a 10-minute after the floor ends kind of a thing. If the floor ends up going very late, then we'll revisit it, but I think it won't. So that's tomorrow. And then Michelle had asked earlier just a logistical question or a sort of a procedural question about S45. So I just wanted to clarify for everybody, the Judiciary Committee asked us to look at the bill. So it's not that we're, getting a jump on something that we might not get. I don't think we're going to have the bill on our wall. So they've asked us to take a look at the bill and in particular, give them feedback on agricultural sections that they may not just have the capacity, but it's not their specialty. So agriculture is our specialty. So we're going to try and, get a handle on that, and to the extent that we can give them some feedback. And there's no particular timeline. I think that if it takes us a couple of weeks to hear what we want to hear, that would be normal. And it could be more, it could be less.
Did it come out of Senate Ag or which
It was Senate Judiciary.
came out of Senate?
Yeah. And the reason for that is that the section of statute, the title, is a section that the Judiciary Committees have jurisdiction over. So Title 12, which is dealing with nuisance. This is a change to the chapter that deals with nuisance. It's not in the Ag title.
Steve said, Senate Ag unanimously.
Oh, I think they had the same, like they had a chance to look at it.
Straw poll.
Yeah.
4-1 out of Senate Judiciary. Draw poll 100% in Senate Ag and 25-5 Senate floor. And
No vote yet from.
House Judiciary has not. Yeah.
there's only a couple things that they've changed that bother me and and
In the House Judiciary.
yeah, and one of them's on page 6, line 14 and page 7, line 7. The difference is one says one of them says the state can deem it not safe. I think that's how it goes. But anyway, the one on page 7, line 7, I'm fine with. The one on page 6 just annihilates the bill. And then the highlighted sections that they sent to us is where they want us to weigh in on the water thing. And,
So that's tomorrow, and we're starting at 9. Okay. Thank you for letting us know. Good. All right, we'll see everybody tomorrow then.